So this reading here is from, excuse me, the book of Exodus, chapter 31. And this is the King James Version because I think it sounds better in King James language. It says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep. For it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defileth," get this now, "shall be surely put to death. For whosoever does any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death." A little strong, don't you think? I think of all the times that I've done things on the Sabbath, and I'm still around, for which I'm grateful. I'm always puzzled by our Bergen County blue laws. Those of you who live in Bergen County, you know what they're like, who've grown up here, right? The laws that were instituted even before the founding of the United States, before our nation. The Sabbath laws were pretty clear, right? There was no work to be done on the Sabbath. Farmers couldn't work their fields, stores couldn't sell their products, children couldn't play outdoors or even indoors for that matter. And the day was devoted to worship, prayer, scripture reading, and nothing else. If you didn't go to church, no matter what the weather, you were fined, and you might even be put into the stocks or into jail, in the stocks in the village square, or into jail, or both. And over the years, those laws generally became less enforceable and eventually were discarded, all except for the laws prohibiting stores from doing business on the Sabbath, which in the United States generally means Sunday. I still find these blue laws kind of odd. For example, some stores can be open to sell necessary items like food. But if you're in a large store like Costco that also sells clothing and other items during the week, they have to cordon off all those sections and they can't sell them. No one can buy them or even return them on those days. I suppose that in the mind of the people who wrote these laws, it's never necessary to buy clothes on a Sunday. If you're a furniture store, right, like Ethan Allen or Bob's or one of those places, you have to be closed on Sunday. But if you're an antique store like my mother-in-law used to own, or like Lisa and I used to own, you can be open and sell antiques or used furniture as long as it's not new. So, they're a little odd, those laws. Now, I only bring up those blue laws as a way to begin a discussion about the idea of Sabbath, a time that is set aside for things other than what we do all the time. And it's interesting that many of the people who support those blue laws, who live in the areas where all those stores and malls are, they often say they support them because they need a break from all the traffic and congestion that comes with it during the week. And I can understand that. If you've ever been on Route 17 on a Saturday, especially during the holidays or most Saturdays, I still wonder, though, how many of those people get in their cars and drive to other counties that don't have blue laws, okay, to do their own Sunday shopping, in areas that are crowded as well. And they articulate what the essence of what Sabbath is supposed to be about, a day to take a break, to rest from all the work and busyness that we find and we fill our lives with every day. Genesis 1 says that God created the world and that that he did it all in 6 days. And on the seventh day, it says God rested. The word Sabbath is derived from the Hebrew word Shavuot, or as we sang in some of our hymns on other Sundays before Sabbath. And even though it's usually translated as rest, a more accurate translation is ceasing from work, but not in the sense of doing nothing. It really means an active cessation from work. It would seem that it's almost an oxymoron, active cessation. But as I think about that, I begin to think of it in terms of a shift in our thinking that takes place when we deliberately make a choice to slow down and to rest, to relax, to repair ourselves. Wayne Muller, in the quote that I said before, he has that comes from a book called Sabbath, Finding Rest, Renewal, and Delight in Our Busy Lives. He also says this: who can make muddy waters clear, asks the Tao Te Ching. But if allowed to remain still, it will gradually become clear of itself. The invitation to rest is rooted in an undeniable spiritual gravity that allows all things at rest to settle, to find their place. There comes a moment in our striving when more effort actually becomes counterproductive, when our frantic busyness only what muddies the water of our wisdom and understanding. How muddy is our water? Sorry. I can say that most of the time, my water is pretty muddy. And most of that muddiness is caused by my constantly splashing around in the water I'm in, stirring things up, even when I don't have to, because I need to create busyness, right? Even if it's useless busyness around me. And why is that? Well, because our culture thrives on busyness. Interesting that the word business and busyness are pretty much the same thing, right? If you're not busy, you're being lazy, according to our culture. If you're not busy, there's something wrong with you. You have to work long hours. You have to be busy in order to succeed. Even most people who retire these days feel compelled to be busy. How many people that you know who have retired, or maybe some of you even, you retire for a while and things are all nice, you get to relax and everything, but after a while there's that little itch to do something. I've got to be doing something. And I believe that this is because we've lost the real understanding and the capacity to know the difference between laziness and actual rest, true rest. Earlier, before our service today, there was a brief conversation about who takes naps. And naps are a good thing. I like naps. But too many naps during a day, not so good, maybe. I don't know. But a nap once in a while is good. The earlier reading that I read at the beginning, it says we have lost our way. And this is where the idea of Sabbath becomes even more vital to our physical and our emotional and our mental and spiritual health today. But here too, we've lost the real meaning of what Sabbath is about. I'm not sure when that happened, but over the centuries, even within the Jewish community, the notion of Sabbath took on a very legalistic air. I recall we had Jewish neighbors when I was a child, and our next door neighbors were Orthodox. And my father or another neighbor would have to go over on a Sunday morning to turn on the oven or the heat or the electricity for them, so that the food that they were preparing or whatever, that they would have heat in their house, because otherwise it was considered work. I never understood that. And we never saw their children outside playing on the Sabbath. They were just inside. Now, I know that that's normal, not normal. There are, having lived in this area for a while, I know that families do take walks on the Sabbath. They're only allowed to go a certain distance, though. I think you all are aware of all that. That legalism was also evident too in many Christian denominations. Sunday, which is the Christian Sabbath, was a day for church, for prayer, for Bible study. There wasn't much else you could do. It wasn't until I was, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 years old that we watched any television during the day. wasn't until later in the evening, on a Sunday evening, that the TV came on in our house. I don't know why that changed or why it was different before, but it did. And church, we went to church on Sunday morning. Then we went back later in the afternoon and we stayed there for the evening service. So we were mostly in church on Sunday, the Sabbath. But that's not what the Sabbath is for. Jesus, who was quoting the rabbis, taught that the Sabbath was made for us, not the reverse. And as Muller points out in his book, the rabbis over the years taught that the Sabbath was supposed to be a time for joy, for relaxing with family, for reflection, even for making love. Yes, the rabbis taught that. The Sabbath, with its smells and its ceremony and songs, it's a time of sensuality in the truest sense of the word. But apart from the misunderstanding and baggage that the word Sabbath carries for many of us, we really have no idea how to do Sabbath. And so, like many others today, I think about it a lot, this word Sabbath, and it has nothing to do with sleeping late or naps, really, or vacation. Most of the time, people need a Sabbath from their vacation when they return, right? How many of you have said that? Oh, I need a vacation from my vacation. And it has nothing to do with being lazy. And Sabbath doesn't mean setting aside a particular day as holy or special each week. As much as I would like to think that I could do that, the reality of my life and perhaps your life and everybody else's life, that makes it almost virtually impossible. Sabbath, that active cessation from work, can be whenever we choose and for however long we choose it to be. We listened a little while ago to the great bell chant that Thich Nhat Hanh led. And in Plum Village, the Buddhist community in France that he established a number of years ago, a bell is periodically rung during the day, a very large bell outside. And at that moment, when the bell rings, everyone, wherever they are, no matter what they're doing, they stop and they take 3 silent, mindful breaths. And it's a brief time to simply actively cease from the busyness that they're engaged in and to be mindful of their surroundings and of themselves and of others. And it's a brief moment of rest. Let's stop for just a second. You don't have to raise your hand or anything like that, but when you think about that time of meditation that we have each week, today was longer than most weeks, how many of us really take that time to actively cease from the busyness of our thoughts? It's hard to do, right? How many of you sit there and close your eyes, but you're thinking, I have so much to do later? Or how long is he going to make us sit here like this? I can tell you that I usually sit there and think and wonder, how long can I make them sit there like this? So just for a few seconds, let's stop. I'm going to ring the bowl and let's all just take 3, like they do at Plum Village. Let's take 3 deep, mindful breaths. So like some of you, for me, sometimes even that is difficult, right? Right away, I'm thinking, well, how deep should that breath be? How long should I hold it? You know, is everybody else taking, is everybody really taking 3 mindful breaths? My mind goes like that, right? In Buddhism, that's called monkey mind. We jump from one thought to another. But when we practice that, when we do that, it becomes easier. Sabbath can be for an hour, it can be for a minute, 10 minutes, it could be for a part of a day. But there's no doubt that and I suspect most of you, need to find this Sabbath time in our lives every day. And by the way, I'm not speaking here about meditation if you already do that. That serves a different purpose. Sabbath is simply about being, about allowing ourselves to experience life deeply. Perhaps it's by taking a walk, or maybe preparing a meal mindfully and enjoying it in silence, or maybe alone with someone else. Perhaps it's a once a month gathering with other people. The purpose of Sabbath is really about self-care. And it can also be about caring for others, being a shoulder to lean on, a listening ear for someone who's in personal difficulty. And then it's not only your Sabbath, but that becomes a Sabbath for that other person. It means that we become a Sabbath. Think about that. We become rest for someone else. Jesus even said, "Come unto me, all you who labor, and I will give you rest. I will be a Sabbath for you." In the Buddhist tradition, this is stated as taking refuge. We ourselves can become a rest, a refuge, a Sabbath for other people. Because our lives are so fraught with busyness. As you use, we're frequently busy with our activism, right? And our work to make the world a better place. And there's so much of that to be done, no doubt. But unless we take time to actively cease from our activism, even once in a while, our effectiveness will decrease. In the business world, they say that your ROI goes down, your return on investment goes down. How difficult it is for many of us at times to say, no, I can't do it right now. Wayne Muller, again, he writes this. He says, "When we stop, we see that the world continues without us. Sweet humility and gentle mindfulness bequeath the grace to stop and see that it is good. There is no need to keep pushing. When we stop with no chores or agenda, we let our eyes rest, our bodies heal, our activities languish, and taste the fruits of our labor, as the psalmist invites us. Be still and know." The world seduces us, he says, with an artificial urgency that requires us to respond without listening to what is most deeply true. In Sabbath time, we cultivate a sense of eternity where we truly rest and feel how things can wait and turn them gently in our hand until we feel their shape and know the truth of them. How can we bring Sabbath time into our own lives? If our response is, "I'm too busy to find time for Sabbath," I suggest that that's precisely the reason why we need to find that time. I've read that the Chinese pictograph for busy is made up of the characters for heart and kill. Now, I don't know if that's accurate or not. There are all these ideas floating around, but it kind of sounds interesting, right? Maybe they are. It says, apart from the obvious physical ramifications, busyness can also be a heart killer spiritually and emotionally. So maybe we really are too busy. Perhaps you can think of some ways like the ringing of a bell periodically to observe a small Sabbath during your day or week. Maybe set a timer on your watch or cell phone to go off to remind you to breathe every few hours. Light a candle or a chalice in your home each day at the same time and just breathe 3 times. Some people just stop and say a silent thank you, or to breathe when they touch a doorknob or before answering the phone. One way that many of us were raised, and I confess I don't often do this, is to be silent before a meal or to say a thank you before a meal. That's a Sabbath. Maybe a Sabbath meal or a walk. If you can take a whole day for Sabbath, that's great. But I hope that you're going to try this and maybe join me as I try even more as especially as we get older, to fit Sabbath into our life. And that you'll share your own experience of Sabbath with others. So Shabbat Shalom. May it be so.
If you enjoyed this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video.